We're going to shift to the conditional use hearing. I'm going to turn the meeting over to solicitor.
So, we're ready to move forward with going on the record for the conditional use hearing. This is the third conditional use application for the property at 92 Main Street in West Easton. The way we're going to handle this hearing is similar to the way we've handled the prior two hearings, where the applicant will put on their testimony. There'll be an opportunity for questions. There'll be an opportunity for the public to ask questions of the applicant. I want to be clear about that. They'll be asking questions related to any testimony. When the applicant is done, the public will have an opportunity to provide and tell us whatever they want to do, or whatever they want to tell us. And we want to provide you with that opportunity to do it. What we don't want to have happen is when we're going to the question and answer period, it turns into a speech. So we're going to ask the public, although we have a right to be heard and we want to hear from you if you want to tell us anything, but we have to follow the rules. From speaking with Attorney Preston, and he'll verify when the appropriate time comes, is we've already had two conditional use hearings, and each time we had a hearing, we had a transcript, we had exhibits, and so on. I anticipate that the applicant is going to introduce that again, meaning we're not going to have to go from the beginning to the end of the first hearing and the second hearing. So if you had spoken at the first or the second hearing, that's part of the record already. That doesn't prevent you from talking again today. No one's telling you to not talk today. I just want you to be aware of what's happening. So that's where we are. From a procedural standpoint, and I say this more for Borough Council than anybody else, as to where we are, this is a brand new, fresh conditional use application. But again, they're going to assuming Attorney Preston proceeds the way I anticipate, and the way we've discussed, you will not have to go through the first full hearing, the second full hearing again. That's our choice, but it would be my recommendation to proceed that way. With that, it's the applicant's burden to proceed, and we hand it over to him.
Okay, Attorney Guzzi, thank you, Mr. President, members of council. Good evening. My name is Jim Preston, and I represent the applicant. And as Attorney Guzzi had said, for the purposes of the record, I would ask that the council take judicial notice of and incorporate as part of the record the notice of testimony and exhibits from the prior two hearings and the decisions of the council with respect to those hearings. And last but not least, the court decision or the signature of Judge Sledford, which determined the outcome of the final hearing of the council. What we have done, and you have the application before you, and again, I would ask that the application be made part of the record in its entirety. The approach that we're taking this evening is we've gone through Judge Sledford's decision, and she found both for and against our application. There were three particular matters she cited that she felt were deficiencies, and the balance of the application, I believe, she felt was satisfactory. So what we would like to do is what we have done, you see with the application, we've resubmitted now, and we've addressed each of the three deficiencies, all that by Judge Sledford. So you have a letter, hopefully you have that letter from which identifies those as part of the application. So the way I hope to proceed is the gentleman to my left is Tommy Marfisi. You're familiar with him. These are consultants for the project. And of course, this is Mr. Ted, owner of the property, also the manager of the facility. What I'd like to do is to call as my first witness, Mr. Marfisi, and to go through that letter and to demonstrate for you how it is that we hope to be able to comply with this. I don't know if I missed anything that you do with respect to the record or anything else to put in here.
No, I think so. Borough Council is aware. The request is to incorporate the entire transcript of the first conditional use hearing, the second conditional use hearing, as well as Judge Sledford's opinion in all the relevant documents. It's my recommendation that we adopt that. So, Borough Council's permission. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll do for the purposes of creating a record. Well, we have taken notice of those prior matters.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. So then I'll go right to what the issues are here this evening. And for that, I'm going to go to my letter of May 17, 2019, which was incorporated and made part of the record and resubmitted the prior application, but we bolded and highlighted those areas that the judge said needed attention. And one of the first areas was referred to or talked about third-party bond security services. So I'm going to call Mr. Marfisi as the first witness. You guys want to swear me right away?
That's a good idea.
Would everyone please stand and raise your right hand, please? Just in case you say anything.
Is that what
You swear by mighty God to search your all hearts that the testimony that you shall give in this proceeding to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and as you shall answer to God at the last great day. Do you so swear? You may be seated.
Mr. Marfisi, you were here all the prior hearings.
Yes. I'm sorry to interrupt. That's your question. Just for the record, we'll note that the entire room except for borough council has been sworn in, so we don't have any issues.
And could I stop you for a second? We do not have this letter. I don't have it in front of me. Can we take a moment to make some copies real quick?
Absolutely, certainly.
She dropped it out the law, but last time she gave you had a whole packet for everybody, so I didn't.
You didn't get it back?
We got some, but not enough for everybody.
Oh,
Last time came in.
I'm sorry.
Got it. Got it. Thank you, sorry.
I thought you had.
You should have had it. It was in an email. I didn't make a copy of it.
Yeah. Okay?
Thank you.
So, now what you have in front of you is my letter of May 17th, 2019. And while you're taking a look at that, I can just explain to you how it's laid out. You flip through it, you'll see there's several bolded and highlighted areas. This is really the original application. It's been modified, and the modifications are the bolded and underlined areas. So you'll see each of the three issues is addressed in here. One talks about third-party line security, another one talks about perimeter fence, and the other one talks about the policy of the mission of the facility. So those are the three areas that we're going to be addressing this evening, and the reason those are the three areas is because those are the three areas that were identified by Judge Silver. So I'm going to get back now to Dominic Beebe, and Dominic, you were at all the prior hearings, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And just by way of summary, again, what's your involvement with? Yeah.
I'm a private consultant to Mr. Tia with respect to licensure and opening of facilities within the
And you were familiar,
If you could try to keep your voice up, you're facing us, which is fine, but if you would speak loudly so the people behind you can hear, if you can.
Repeat that? Would you like me to repeat that?
Can you guys hear in the back okay?
Maybe the microphone.
You want, borough councils,
Like, I mean, it's, everybody should be able to hear you. If you have a, probably you have a microphone.
I am a private consultant to Mr. Tia to license and open healthcare facilities related to drug and alcohol and mental health.
you're familiar with my letter of May 17th, 2019, are you not?
Yes, I am.
And are you familiar with the three items that we're going to talk about this evening?
Yes, I am.
Let's go to the first of those items, which appears on page 2, and it's identified under part 3, 3A, and it says there that the West Eastern Treatment Center shall have a third-party bonded security agency to provide security for the facility and the premises as per Judge Sledvold's April 22nd, 2019 opinion. Could you tell us what's happening? What does that mean?
It means that we will employ, contract, utilize a third-party bonded security agency to oversee and implement security measures for the 176-bed program.
Let's go to page 3. And we're now at paragraph 3, part H. And this reads as follows. The exterior of the premises will have fencing throughout. Additionally, there will be a perimeter fence around the treatment center as per Judge Sledvold's April 22nd, 2019 opinion. And then there's some more discussion here about perimeter fencing. Are you aware of the exhibit that's been prepared to help you explain what you're about to talk about next?
Yes, I am.
I'll hand you this if you recognize that.
Yes,
Is that the exhibit that was prepared to help you explain it to you?
yes, it is.
If you have a moment, would you put it on the
Sure.
easel over there? And Mr. Marfisi, for purposes of getting oriented here, let's first describe, well, tell us what that shows in terms of just the
This
geometry.
is the proposed treatment facility going to Maine, where a perimeter fence is required around the perimeter of the building. The building itself is proposed to be the orange area with an outside recreation area in this green identified area. As you can see, the perimeter fence.
Before we get to the perimeter fence, just to be clear, actually, I think what the judge, or what the ordinance requires is fencing around not just the building, but the facility. Is that fair statement?
That is correct. This is the facility.
Okay, so what's the significance of the orange on that drawing?
The significant orange is the proposed footprint
Of the building?
of the building itself,
And is there,
not to exceed anywhere outside of the orange.
are there areas that are part of the facilities that are not orange?
This recreation area here.
And that's a little green?
Yes, it is to the left of this drawing.
Okay, now can you explain to the board and to the audience, if there's a perimeter fence that circumscribes that facility?
There is identified by this purple dotted line that will begin here going along the fence line, all the way around the recreation area, back to the main building, up the main building. This is a solid wall construction where a fence will be implemented into the wall, down where the fence continues, around, all the way around here, down, and then into the solid wall again. That separates these two areas, which is a different building. There will be a fence implemented in this wall here as well. So, in fact, there will be a fence all the way around, even though there's a solid wall here, here, and here.
Okay, Mr. Marquis, I'm going to hand you a yellow highlighter. I'm going to ask that you trace that perimeter fence for me, please.
Sure. Excuse me, folks.
So for the purpose of the record, then, you've identified with that yellow highlighter the perimeter fence, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that perimeter fence is coincidental with the perimeter of the facility, is it not?
That is correct.
Both the buildings and the outside areas.
Correct.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not the facility itself is entirely surrounded by the perimeter fence?
It is.
Very good. Now I want to move to the next, the final item, which is in paragraph 3, part J. You can sit down if you want. And that talks about, and I'll just read from the revised submission. It says, part J, for Judge Sledvold's April 22nd, 2019 opinion, as a policy of admission to the facility, residents shall sign a contract with the facility in which the resident agrees that they must be picked up by a third party upon discharge, or if they chose to voluntarily leave the facility prior to discharge. You familiar with that?
Yes.
Why don't you take a few minutes and explain, counsel, what's intended there?
So I understand, as I recall, concerns regarding individuals walking off the property. This requirement would indicate that upon admission and without signing, there would be no admission, that if they decided to leave or upon scheduled discharge, their third party, whether it be transportation arranged by the facility or transportation arranged by the family of the individual, would be in place and would meet the individual as they're leaving the facility. And it would be, as I said, a requirement that they sign that on, and it would be part of the admissions paperwork.
And with that, I have no further questions for Mr. Marfisi. I would ask, however, that this drawing that he's marked over here not be included in the record. We'll have, would you prefer A1 with that?
A1 would be fine. Do you want to mark it as A1?
Yep.
And do you have a smaller copy, or is that the only one you have?
I think we have copies of that for you. We'll provide you a copy.
So before we go any further, just for the purposes of the record, A1's been introduced in evidence. It is the large scale, or relatively large scale, what do you want to call it, plan or chart or otherwise. I see the applicant has a smaller version. What I'd ask is for the witness to highlight the same area that you highlighted before. So And that way, if you have to provide a record report. Mr. Murphy, with regard to the contract that the resident would sign, a resident would be signing a contract to enter into the facility in the first instance, no matter what, correct?
Correct, it would be permission to treat, if you will. So without signing in, they would not be admitted anyway.
Okay.
And there's a long list of other forms that they would be signing. This would be one of the required signature pages.
Putting aside this, if we can for a moment, let's put aside this requirement or this suggestion about drop-off or pickups. With regard to all the other documents is it a resident or a client? I always use the wrong term.
Residents typically overnight, client is an outpatient.
So would the resident normally sign a series of documents to have admission, to gain
Correct.
admission? One of them, or several of them, I imagine, would be to follow the rules and regulations of the facility.
Correct.
The facility has a series of rules that they can impose as a condition for a resident to remain in the program.
Correct,
And that's customarily done.
yes.
And I know you've done these before, correct? And is it a fair statement to say it's done in every facility that you have?
Every facility I've ever been affiliated.
And they have, and just so we're clear, we're talking about facilities just like what is being proposed here in West Easton.
Correct.
So the concept being that a resident wants to come in, they have to sign a series of documents, and the documents say you have to follow the rules. Correct?
Correct.
And that's what you were saying is true in every single time you've ever done this.
Correct.
And I know we had the benefit of the earlier testimony, but my recollection is you've done this, I don't want to say, put a number in your
Hundreds of times.
Okay. All right. So in this case, what you're proposing is one additional document that says that the resident agrees to leave or come in under certain conditions. Is that right?
Correct.
Isn't that documentation or isn't that information already in the general packet that you've utilized in other facilities?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
At some point, if they were going to leave prematurely, they would give notice, say a 72-hour notice. It would allow us to either set up follow-on treatment for them and secure transportation so that they're not just walking out into the public. Or do everything in our power to ensure they have safe transportation so they're not walking out, hitching a ride, meeting up with individuals who may not be in their best interest.
So if I understand what you're saying, in other programs, not this one, this proposed, in other programs, there'd be documentation saying if a resident wants to leave, you'd like them to give notice.
Correct.
And if the resident wants to leave, you'd like them to give you 72 hours notice.
Correct.
And they'd sign a document to that effect. Correct?
Correct.
And once they provided you with notice, you would like to, when I say you, the facility, would take steps to try to situate them so if they're going to leave, they leave in a way that makes sense to the program.
Or try to convince them that it's in their best interest to remain in treatment.
That was my next question.
Which is why we ask for 72 hours.
So in the regular, when I say regular, other than West Easton, the ones that you've dealt with in the past, that's what the resident signs. But if the resident wants to leave, decides to walk out the door, the program and the individuals at the program do not stop that resident, correct? Do not physically restrain them.
You cannot, because again, the type of license that you have.
Okay, and I think we've discussed this at
Correct.
other hearings, but I want to be clear about it. A resident wants to leave, and I believe your testimony in prior hearings were you tried to convince the resident to stay, but if a resident wants to leave, you cannot restrain them.
Correct.
You cannot secure them.
Cannot.
You cannot force them to remain.
Correct.
You cannot lock them in.
Correct.
They can leave on their own will. There's nothing you can do about it if they have the will to leave.
I do want to make a comment.
Okay, but answer my question first.
Yes, they can.
Okay, now go ahead, make your comment.
So again, in programs that I oversee, programs that I have overseen, it's all about communication and engagement. So the sooner you engage an individual when they walk in the door, and if you will, get them convinced that this is a program for them, the chances of them leaving prematurely are reduced greatly. And if they do have an emotional period where they want to leave prematurely, typically they've connected with somebody in the facility that they trust who can talk them into staying. So in programs that I've overseen, the individuals leaving against medical advice is far less than the national average. And I can honestly say that.
Now let's talk about what you're proposing here for the West Easton facility.
Correct.
For the West Easton facility, you're suggesting that the resident, sign a form similar to what's already being utilized in your other programs.
If I could clarify, in the rule book, there's a set of rules. And of course, in there it states that if an individual wants to leave prematurely, they would give 72 hours notice.
Okay, pardon me, before you go any further, in that rule book, you mean in every program that you've ever been involved in?
Yeah, I've developed a resident rule book.
All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Process. So along with that is transportation releases. For example, they need to be transported to an emergency facility. They have to sign a release for an ambulance corps. That's still up front. If they're involved with, say, domestic relations with the township or the county, they sign that release. So there's a lot of different forms that they would sign up front. As long as we're aware of what's going on, we have them sign the paperwork up front. Therefore, they can't say at the time, no, I'm not going to sign. So we have them sign the form that they would accept transportation, third-party transportation, or that they would allow us to sell transportation for them before they leave. Now again, like anybody else, they could change their mind at the last minute. We will do everything in our power to keep them from wandering about into the community. That's the main goal. As I've said before, it's not the intent to have them wander around in the community. Doesn't do them any good, doesn't do you any good, doesn't do us any good.
So, for what you're proposing for West Easton, the resident assigned this additional form that we already talked about, correct?
Correct.
And that form is consistent with the forms that you would have signed in every other program you've ever been involved in, correct?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
Nowhere else do we have them sign, or have them sign, something that said, you will not leave without us calling a third party. It's more like, you will not leave without us allowing us to do whatever we can to keep you motivated, to retain you so that we can help save your life, basically. But there is not a form. There's as many townships, boroughs, cities, counties I've been involved in, no one has mandated that we have a specific form. I don't have a problem with that. It's not a bad idea. The fact of the matter is that people change their mind.
Okay.
So what is the alternative when they change their mind? Well, for example, if they're employed, and we say, if you leave prematurely without us getting transportation for you, your job may be in jeopardy. Because your boss is expecting us to call them when you've been discharged, when you've completed treatment. You're not completing it, you're leaving on your own. So that's going to have an impact. So you use certain motivators that may work for this individual or that individual or have.
So now in West Easton, they've signed this additional form. Resident says, I want to leave. Starts walking to the door. I don't want the words here, so let's go through the process again. The program cannot stop him, correct? Correct?
Cannot stop. Well, we can't forcibly stop. If I may, Jim, where are you going? I'm leaving. Jim, we talked about this earlier today. I know that you're anxious. I know you got a phone call from home. You want to be there, but let's talk about it. I don't want to talk. I'm done talking. I want to walk out the door. Okay? Jim, come on. Stop. Maybe Dominic's not the one who Jim's going to respond to. So Abe sees what's going on. Abe goes over, hey Jim, let's go talk. You do that until you exhaust every effort before that individual walks. And if they walk out that door, you stay with them. You exhaust every effort. So there's nothing left.
Okay. So you try to talk to them and persuade them to remain.
Yes.
You cannot secure them, correct?
No.
You will not be securing them, correct? You cannot lock them in.
No.
They can walk right out to the public.
It's
If they make a decision, correct?
that's correct.
If they make a decision to walk out of the facility and walk into the streets of West Easton, there's nothing you can do.
No.
You agree with me that they would not, I think we talked about this, but they're not secured, correct?
The license does not allow for you to secure them.
This is not a secured process to prevent discharge into the public.
That is correct.
Right.
That would be a locked psychiatric facility, which is not.
So if a resident decides to leave, the piece of paper that they sign can't keep them in, correct?
That's correct. However, again, if the individual has, say for example, they've got a job, or they have minor charges, and they got a probation officer, or they've got a spouse or a family member who, is not going to let them come back and live at home if they don't complete the program. You use all of those as motivators to try to get the individual to stay, because you cannot physically secure them.
Now-
You use other tools to help keep them in the program.
So if we had a situation where a resident leaving the treatment center would have to be...
I'm sorry, there's talking back here, I can't hear you.
Oh, that's okay. I'll say it again.
Okay.
I apologize. Let me start from square one. If a resident was leaving the treatment center and must be picked up by a third party, there is a way to do that, correct?
Oh, yes,
You could keep them secured.
of course.
You could keep them locked in until somebody came to pick them up.
Oh, would be locked in, they would be, someone would keep them.
Ma'am,
People,
I'm going to stop the testimony if there's going to be back talk while I'm trying to speak.
sir, that's...
Everybody, this is a matter of record, and this is really important that we get through this process before we move on. So please, if not, then you're going to have to
I
start
feel
moving people
harassed,
out.
and I'm not going to take it.
Mr. Front, please, we apologize. Again, to the audience members, please remain silent. Comments under your breath can be heard, so please. I'm sorry.
So let's go back to what we're talking about. If a resident was going to leave the treatment center, and there was a requirement that he or she must be picked up by a third party, there is a way to do that, correct?
Yes, there is.
They could be secured until that third party came.
Secured does not mean locked, but yes, they could be secured.
However, you told us that based on the regulations, you would not be securing such a resident who wanted to leave.
There are different levels of security.
Okay? But let's be clear about this. You would not be
They
secured.
would not be locked in.
They would not be forced to remain until, if you let me finish, they would not be forced to remain until a third party picked them up, correct? They could walk out the door. Yes?
Yes, they could.
They would walk through the fence. And when I say through the fence, obviously the openings in the fence, correct? Yes? And let's talk about the fence. Is the fence going to have openings, obviously, for ingress and egress?
Correct.
Are they going to be locked?
Fences?
The gate, are there going to be
There will
gates?
be gates that will be lifted up, so therefore, you'll not be able to pass through without it being lifted up.
Okay. Is that for vehicular traffic or otherwise?
I believe it's for both.
Okay. Does your exhibit indicate any of that? My question was, does your exhibit indicate any of that?
I am not that familiar with the specifics of the fence. If I could defer to Mr. Attia for that question.
Okay, my question is, does your exhibit,
Yeah.
A1, indicate where the gates are, what kind of gates there are, anything about gates?
Yes, there are gates identified on the drawing.
Okay. And then, are there going to be, and my question was, and if you don't know the answer, I understand, were the gates to stop vehicular traffic or pedestrian traffic or both? Okay. So, sir, your testimony is you can't answer that?
I cannot answer that
Okay,
question.
fair. Do you know if the gates are going to be locked?
I cannot answer that question.
The bonded security company, or the bonded security agency, is going to be 24 hours a day?
Yes.
How many people are going to be working at once?
I don't have that number.
Is it more than 3?
It is not identified in the letter from Judge Swoboda. So there will be individuals monitoring the security cameras and individuals, at least one individual walking the perimeter.
So,
I don't believe it's been stated anywhere the number of security people that are required to be at the site.
that's why I'm asking you, what are you proposing?
I'm not the operator.
You're,
I would defer to Mr. Attia.
so, sitting here, you can't, although you testified about...
I testified about security.
Yes,
I
that
didn't
it is.
testify how many staff.
Right, you testified of the existence of security.
Correct.
Can you tell me any details about the security?
I cannot, Mr. Attia can.
Okay. And back to the fence, you testified about the fence, but you can't really tell us any details about the fence.
There's openings, but I cannot be more specific than that.
All right. I don't have anything further. This would be an appropriate time that if there's any members of the public that want to ask questions of the witness, they can do that. So remember, this is for questions specifically to what was testified to by this witness, not statements yet, not closing or otherwise. Okay. Sir?
And then,
Yes. Yeah, what I'd ask you to do is, before you start talking, identify yourself, limit whatever you're saying to a question for the witness, please.
Brandon Lutz, I want to know, are the patients, whatever, are they going to be allowed visitors?
Mr. Marquez, can you answer that?
The residents will earn privileges to have visitation, as all programs allow that.
Yes, ma'am. If you would stand. I don't believe you came in, no offense, you came in a little late. So, hold on. So people were sworn in, but I don't believe you were sworn in.
I was sworn in with the group.
Oh, you were? Okay, I apologize. Okay. Could you identify who you were?
Yes, my name is Renee Sterling. I'm new to the area and I haven't visited any of the other hearings. My question is, I know where the other facility is, kind of, because I pass it on the way to work, but I'm not exactly sure where his facility is in reference to that. And are they, with the fence, is it a see-through fence where the people from one facility can intermingle with the people from the new facility?
Okay, let me ask, if I may, remain standing for a minute. Those are 2 questions, so let him answer one at a time. You heard the first question about, the first question was, where is this facility compared to the DUI facility? Was that your question?
Correct.
He didn't testify to where it was relative to the DUI, so Mr. T can answer.
Okay, but however, Mr. Preston, he did testify to the map. So if he doesn't know where it is,
No, I didn't say he didn't know where it is. I'm going to keep this from devolving into an argument. He's going to respond to questions about what you testified directly. He didn't orient anything, intentionally avoided discussing the DUI center. He was reluctant to allow the DUI center to now come in. We were here originally, I heard a lot of complaints about the DUI center. We don't operate that way. He did not testify.
her question is, where is this in relation to the DUI center?
Mr. T will.
If your client refuses, if your witness refuses to answer, so be it. Go ahead, your second question.
The fence, is it like a chain link fence where you can see through it? Or is it something that's a solid fence where you can't?
Mr. Murphy, can you answer that question?
If I'm walking past and I say hi, or can they see or can they not?
I defer to Mr. T.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we're in the pickup and drop off. Pardon?
Name again, Bill,
Bill Smith,
for the record.
93 and a half Main Street, West Houston. Where's the pickup and drop off going to be? Which gate and which fence?
Yeah, I didn't testify to that. I will defer to
You were
Mr.
talking about the
Whoa,
fences.
whoa, 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 stop. Stop. Is it your testimony, sir, that you can't answer that question?
I did not testify to where exactly the pickup and drop-off area was. Therefore, I cannot state where it is on that map.
Okay. Just so sir, you testified to pick up and drop off. You testified to an exhibit that indicated where the building is. It is with some suspect that I have, or some reservation that I have with regard to your statements, you can't respond to these questions. But if that's your position, that's your position.
You talked about the fence. I want to know where the...
I understood, but he's digging into it for you.
What?
I'll answer.
Go ahead.
Mr. Whoa, let everybody stop. This is not going to happen. So this witness has indicated he can't answer this. So for now, that's where we are. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Beth Woods. My question is,
Your address, please, sorry.
177 Spring Street. My question is for the client, as far as healthcare goes, and drug and alcohol, I know that's the facility, I know you stated that you have run multiple facilities in the past. I would like to know if the residents will be required to sign a drug and alcohol agreement where they will not be allowed to, more or less they'd be kicked out of the facility if anything was found, or if when they do get privileges for visitors, if, how will their visitors need to sign that agreement also?
Is that not beyond the scope of this?
I think he talked about forms and what they would be required to sign. That's a legitimate question.
That was for me, correct?
Yes.
As I know I've mentioned in the past, drug and alcohol will not be allowed in the facility. It will be part of the rules. Any visitor coming in will have their bags searched. And if anyone goes out for an activity, they'll have a drug screen when they return and searched.
You have a question, ma'am?
Yes. My name's Nancy Coates. I live at 160 Spring Street. What percentage of patients that leave your other facilities AMA? Against medical advice.
Thank you.
So, for the record, I do not currently run programs. I'm a private consultant. Therefore, I don't run programs. When I ran programs, I had less than a 10% AMA rate. The national average is 36%.
I apologize that I didn't identify myself the first time. Gerald Gross, 206 Fifth Street, West Houston. Before you went into your dissertation with Abe and Harry or whoever promoting peer pressure there, you really didn't answer the question of secure or unsecure people leaving. What happens when an unsecure person wants to leave and you can't stop them and they have to take it outside the gate? And they're not obligated to a pickup and delivery situation anymore. What happens? Is it on the borough and the public safety issue, or is it something for the facility to manage? I don't think it's a manageable thing for the borough to have to be responsible for. I think it has to be a responsibility of the facility.
This is not a question.
That is a question.
What was the question?
I think the question was, if I may, Mr. Gross, I think the question was, when somebody leaves the facility, is it then the facility's responsibility or the borough's responsibility? Was that your question?
Yes, correct.
With all due respect, we've answered these questions before. Why are we continuing to answer these questions?
Sir, please answer the question.
So some of these folks weren't here at the other two meetings, sir. So Mr. Gross wasn't at there.
If they leave the facility, and we've done everything in our power to keep them there, and they refuse to accept the transportation, they have left the facility.
That's not saying the pickup and delivery isn't a very important part of this council's understanding is how they handle it. That is my question, and how you handle it when they want to leave.
It's been asked and it's been answered. Mr. Attorney Guzzi.
Well, I see a lot of people shaking their head in the room, and they aren't thrilled about that.
Attorney Guzzi asked the questions in great detail. What happens when somebody wants to leave? We will tell you right now, we will concede, we will stipulate. This is not a jail, it's not a prison, it's not a lockdown facility. We cannot, under forcible threat, keep people on site. Let's be clear about that. We can't do that, and we won't do that. You can ask that question as many ways as you like. The answer is the same. This is not a jail, it's not a prison, and it's not a lockdown facility. It just isn't. You can continue to ask the question, and the answer is the same.
Well, then why don't you just say it's the borough's responsibility?
Stop for a minute.
No,
Before we go any
sorry.
further, Mr. Gross, I'm not telling you to not ask any questions. Before we go any further, Mr. Orfisi, you heard what Mr. Preston said.
I heard what you said.
That wasn't my question. Mr. Orfisi, you heard what Mr. Preston said. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Mr. Gross, do you have another question?
Yes. What happens when they go out the gate? Is it the borough's responsibility, or is it your responsibility? You're
Well,
the
it's never
answer.
testified as to whose responsibility it is when they go out the gate. It may be the responsibility of the person that picks them up. We don't control the circumstances after they go out.
Wow. Well, you heard the comments in the beginning, I'm sorry, of the other facility and people wandering around. And this is one of the concerns at the first hearing, that the multitude of the people that were here questioned that we don't want them wandering around in town.
All right, I think we're getting a little bit out of control at this point.
Yeah.
Remember, we're asking questions of the witness.
People
Late.
I understand that. I understand.
He has to answer a lot of questions.
Okay, again, ma'am, you in the back?
Yeah.
Nicole Misra, 541 Avenue. Can you explain?
Could you repeat that?
Nicole Misra, 540 Avon Avenue. 540 Avon Avenue. Can you explain what the fence will do? Because there's no boundaries with this fence. So you can't answer, like, what is the purpose of the fence? Why bother putting a fence if it's not going to contain anything? What is the purpose of the fence?
The purpose of the fence is a direct response to this community's requirement of a fence. No program that I've ever run is surrounded by a fence, because no community has made that requirement. Because no community has been so afraid to have drug addicts and individuals in their community. This community has required a fence.
So you can
So
put up
therefore, there is a fence.
So can you put up a 4-foot picket
Let
fence?
him answer the question. Let him answer the question.
One at a time.
Exactly.
So the fence is there because this community requires it. That's it.
Would you like a drug treatment right next to your house?
This is-
No. Exactly.
My name is Janice Gallo.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Janice Gallo, I live directly across the
Wait a
street.
minute, Shannon, what?
Janice Gallo, Gallo. I live directly across the street at 216 7th Street. And the question that I have is regarding, you're dealing with 176 beds you're looking at. Mental health is what I heard, and drug rehab. If these people are unsecured and allowed to walk through the fence, if they go against medical attention and they want to leave, it is then my responsibility, because once they leave that gate, they're in front of my house. So it is our responsibility to then what? Well, do we have a police department yet?
No.
So who am I calling? State police? How long before they come? I was already victimized. What do they do here? the hit and run, the DUI. They left them rear view mirror.
Ma'am, I'm going to try to remind you, this is not the time. You have a
Okay,
question
so
at this
my
point?
question is regarding, I guess, following May Brooks. What exactly am I supposed to do? Because once they come out of that fence, they're in front of my house. So what do I do as a resident to protect myself and my 2 children in my home? I call the police department that we don't have. So what do I do when my kids are subjected to this? Because once they step out of the facility, they're in front of my house.
It's not even a question for me.
So who do I call is my question as a resident.
Again, we've got to follow the rules of how this works.
Okay.
And you're going to have an opportunity, and I say this again for the members of the public, you're going to have an opportunity at the end to tell us anything you want to tell us.
It's not a bash session, it's a question.
I understand that, ma'am, but it's not a question of this witness necessarily.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. State your name again, I know you did.
Renee Sterling, 321 4th Street. Is there a website or is there a document that the average citizen in this area can go to read up on if they're not familiar with your previous facilities or any of your previous work, or just in general about this whole concept?
No.
Trudy Hargraves, 213 2nd Street. You said that this is an unsecured building where anybody could leave. My question is, if one of these residents becomes violent, because drug addicts become violent, what do you do in a case like that?
So the perception that drug addicts become violent is only true for a certain amount of individuals, and based on what they're taking. If they're in this facility, they're not actively using, therefore they're not physically violent.
I believe that's an untrue statement.
Do you have another question?
Yes. When you have facilities, is it necessary for you to make accurate and correct reports to, say, the county or to the state of these incidents that occur?
Yes, there's a requirement through the licensing agency that provides a license to the facility, depending on the type of license it is. It could be one or more reporting agencies. That incidents that involve harm to the community or to the individual, or an emergency situation, or a fire, or several other incidents that could occur on the grounds or within the facility or to the individual or to an employee of the program, it's reportable to the state. The state could be the Department of Health, could be the Office of Mental Health and Drug and Alcohol, it could be several other entities. But yes, there are reporting requirements. The counties can ask for monthly reports or quarterly reports. It is typically a standard that you would notify them as well, based on the relationship that you want to have with those stakeholders, just as we would want to have relationships with West Eastern Borough, even though it may not seem that way at times, but we want to have good relations with the individuals that we are partnering with. We consider them partners. So, I answered the question, I believe, in full detail.
Gerald Gross, 206 Fifth Street, West Easton. The question was asked about the visitors situation. How many parking places have you allotted, and where would they be with the problem that they already have with parking down there for the employees and any visitors that may come? How many is the borough requiring, or how many is in the plan?
That has actually not been.
It was part of earlier testimony, that it was part of the first or the second conditional hearing. But can you answer
I
that
don't
question?
believe that I answered that. I don't have an answer. I'm sorry.
Property was Mr. Carter.
I believe it was Mr. Hart.
That's important.
Okay. Are there any other questions of this witness?
Tom Donnelly, 235th Street.
Could you repeat your name?
Yeah,
What's your name?
Tom Donnelly. All right, we're going back to security. The gentleman said that they can't keep them there. They can let them out at any hour. What's happened, this guy gets out at midnight, or 2 or 3 get out at midnight, and they're gonna be walking the streets. So, we know they have a problem. And then they're saying they're not responsible if something happens. You know, it doesn't make sense. If they're under their care and they're gonna let them walk the streets and the residents don't know it. Or or even if they let them out during the day if there's kids out there. God forbid if something happens. Even their wives. You know, they gotta come at 8 o'clock at night when the sun goes down, they gotta tell everybody, lock your doors, turn the lights on, and watch. You know, it shouldn't happen. I don't think it's the right area.
Mr. Ali, what is your question?
My question is, I don't think it's not the right idea, and there's too much stuff going on.
That's,
Letting them let out, they can walk out the door.
Okay, let's move on. Does anybody from Borough Council have a question of this witness?
Yeah, hi, Wesley Beard, 338 Spring Street. What kind of, and you probably don't know this, what kind of training do these people have that are going to be working at this facility? Are they retired police officers? Are they drug rehabilitation specialists? What are they?
Although that was not part of my testimony today, I'd be happy to answer that. We hire only individuals who have had experience working with a specialized population, whether it be drug and alcohol, or whether it be mental health. There are different levels of individuals, some with degrees, some with advanced degrees. There are psychiatrists, there are nurses. There's what we call a multidisciplinary team to work with the individual. So it's not just someone off of the street.
Okay, does anybody from Borough Council have any questions? So then what we can do is...
Can I ask just a quick question? What time do they go out for work? I mean, is that different for everyone, or?
You're confusing this program with programs.
are you talking about recreation?
No, what they
There is no.
Oh, this is nothing, okay. I just wanted.
This is a
I'm really-
24,
Yes.
this is a
They're there all the time.
24-hour program.
Okay, so they don't get out at all.
Mrs. Jones-Brown is new.
Yeah, I'm new. Last meeting I was little this morning, so I'm mixing the two.
Okay, if there's no further questions for Borough Council, we can now move on to the next witness. So you'll have an opportunity at the end to also tell us. Okay. Mr. Preston, would you like to call
Okay,
up?
let's call Abraham Mattia. Would you identify yourself? Hold on.
I am manager and owner of the property, and the fence we talked about, the thing Dominic didn't answer was the gate thing, the gate situation here. And on this plan that's on the exhibit, it shows the fence, and then it shows a gate to get out of it, okay? And then it shows a gate here to get out of the fence. And this is the drop-off and delivery area that Dominic didn't know, because since we got the new plan, we're complying to the judge's orders.
Hey, hold on a second. There's too many years of theirs, okay? Take that pen, put a mark near the gates.
Right here.
If you use a blue pen, you're making a circle. So you have 3 circles on there, is that correct? Blue circles are the gates? Thank you, go ahead.
You know, the drop-off area is almost where Rita has a nice painting on the wall there, close to the historical house.
Yeah, Mr. Attia, what I'd ask is, can you put it back there so that members of the public can see what you're pointing at?
So the gate drop-off delivery area is all the way in the back. So I know your neighbors have a problem with the DUI center dropping off, but the drop-off area, you got to drive into the alley, drop them off here, they get their intake in here, and then once they're inside the building, they have their outdoor play area here. So it's more of a security area, and it's the building behind the current DUI center, to answer your question. It's a 3-story building. Behind it, you can see it a little bit from the front. And from the people up on East Street, you'd be looking down on it, but the boiler room's going to get ripped down. You will see, but we are going to have a fenced area with grass in there, and it's going to be partial privacy. You're going to be able to see light through it. We don't want to think they're in a prison area. secured, but there's gonna be some visual. There's gonna be, you won't be able to see through it, so you don't want them confined like you're locking them in a psych hospital that where you can't see anything. So it's gonna be secured, drop-off area. I think that's, I answered all the questions. And we're answering questions based on the three issues that the judge remanded us back here for. That's why we're here for those three separate issues.
No.
One moment, sir. Not right now, but in a minute. Mr. Tia, with regard to the gate,
Yes.
is it going to be locked?
You gonna do what?
Locked.
Yes, the gate will be locked.
Okay. Will it be locked? Pardon me.
But if the state regulations mandate that they allow us to keep it locked, that's one thing we're gonna be talking to the state inspectors, like in our secure detention facilities, we have lock gates. And if the fire alarm trips, the gate's open. So if the state allows us to keep that locked under our licensing, then we're gonna keep the gates locked. But
Okay.
it's gonna be up to the state, whether,
Today is the date of the year.
right.
So, sitting here today, absent an I guess what you're
Yeah.
telling me is absent an emergency like a fire,
Right.
will the gates be locked?
No,
The gates will not be locked.
no.
Okay. So the gates will be open.
No, the gates will be closed with a lock on it. So it's a gate, a closed gate, okay? So you turn the handle on and you walk out.
So I understand you. What you're explaining is a gate that's very similar to a door,
Correct.
an unlocked door, correct?
It's an unlocked door. No, a door is closed with a lock on it. Okay, you turn the handle and you can open it. You go out.
To me, and if you think differently, tell me.
Yeah.
But to me, if you have a door, you turn the handle and it opens and you leave,
Yes.
that door is unlocked. Would you agree with that?
Unlocked, yes.
Okay. So what you're proposing is these gates are akin, meaning just like, an unlocked door.
Correct.
Okay. So these gates do not secure somebody either in or out.
Yes, they do. It's security, but it's operable security. You gotta open it up to get out of it. So a dog can't run into it, a bear can't come in, a wolf can't go through that gate. So you have to open the handle to go out.
Okay.
So that's a secure, it's a gate, security gate.
Putting aside animals, let's talk humans. A human wants to walk out of the facility. What they would have to do is go to the gate
Turn the handle.
and walk out.
Correct.
Okay, let's take it the other way. Somebody walks on into the facility. They would walk from the outside to the gate, turn the handle and walk in.
No, we're allowed to lock it from them, all right? We're allowed to lock it from the outside, so nobody can walk in. We could keep the neighborhood, or we could keep any stranger, we could keep people from the DUI center from going in. We're allowed to do that by law. But we can't keep people in that fence from going out.
Okay, so
You
you
can
can,
lock on one side.
so you can secure them from the outside in.
Correct.
You
Am I
can't,
right, Dominic? Yes.
but you cannot secure them from the inside out.
No.
When you say no, you mean correct.
Correct.
Am I right? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Can't, or as far as I can get, as of today, we're not gonna lock that gate from the inside out. We can't lock it.
So you cannot secure it going from the facility, pardon me, you cannot secure it from the facility going out to the streets of West Easton, correct?
We can secure it, but we can't lock it. Your definition of secure is locked. Mine isn't. A locked door, okay, a locked gate is secure as far as I'm concerned. It's a fence that's secure. It's not locked.
There's no, just so we're clear on this, and I'll move on.
Yeah.
Nothing prevents a human from walking out of the facility, turning the knob, and walking through the gate.
Correct.
In this description of number 3, there's magnetic locks.
I don't have anything. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Attia, based on what he testified about? Yes, sir. Sorry.
Marshall Wagner, 179 Spring Street, lifelong resident of West Easton. My question is, how is this benefiting West Easton? And why did they pick this area when they have other areas that they could add on to opposed to building it here.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but that's not a question of Mr. Attia. So we're clear, although many of you may or may not want to ask Mr. Attia lots of things about lots of issues, what he testified to is the fence. So that's what you're going to have to limit your questions to. At the end, you can tell us whatever you want to tell us. Yes, sir.
Wesley Beers, Mr. Attia, how many people will fit in this workout area? The whole 176 people? You go out there and exercise at once? How many people will fit in that area?
Well, the question's to you, Mr. Attia. If you don't know.
We don't know. No, we designed the outdoor courtyard to serve people at 20, 30, 40 at a time. Not everybody goes out there one time. You can't have 170 people in that yard. You know, 20, 30 go out, come out, and another 20, 30 come out. It's designed to serve a crew, a group of people individually.
But there's nothing from stopping 176 people from walking from the facility out into that courtyard.
No.
Okay. My next question is there a gate in that workout area to the outside?
Yes.
A locked gate?
Yes.
A locked gate? Or
It is locked
a
from the
secure
outside.
gate?
It's a locked
Like I
gate.
have on my fence up here in the property. When did I lift up the button and walk in the door?
It's a locked gate from the outside in, but it's unlocked from the inside.
Oh, it's okay. It's locked from the outside in.
Yes. It's locked.
Not secure.
Joe the builder can't sneak in there from the outside, but
This thing opens up only to the outside.
it opens up to the outside.
Okay. But it doesn't open up from the inside.
No, it opens out.
Okay, it opens out, but it won't open in.
If you're a driver.
Wait a minute. One at a time.
Sorry. This gate in the exercise area
Yeah, outdoor space.
can open out. I can walk out of the exercise area if I so desire to.
Correct.
But I cannot walk in there
From the outside.
from the outside. Okay. What's to stop an individual from coming in here, coming around the building, and saying, hey, Joe, open the door and let me in. I got the drugs. What's to stop that? Tell me that.
Security guard, cameras,
How many security?
staff, there's gonna be staff in there to manage that. And plus the guy was kicked out of the facility.
How many staff?
For security, there's gonna be one guard, one security per shift. It's what we're gonna do.
So if they disavow or whatever their permission to do, they're gonna get kicked out of the facility.
Yep.
Out into my neighborhood, walking up my street, saying, ooh, there's a light on there.
Sir, no, sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm just,
Okay. Do you have a question?
I can ask the questions.
Okay. You might want to rephrase that. Is there anything else you want to ask him?
What's to stop one of these people that you throw out of here because they did not do it the right way from walking out up the street and breaking into my house, the old mayor's house, anybody's house that lives here? What's to stop them?
The police department.
We don't have the police department.
Everybody, hold on. Everybody stop. There's only one at a time, and this individual is asking questions, so go ahead, sir.
If an individual leaves without permission, or you throw someone out, are you going to call the police from down there to tell them that we just threw an individual out? Are you or someone in that facility going to call the police department?
We would be discriminating if we called the police department because that individual is a disabled person. If we call the police and say a drug addict is walking out of that street, we will be charged with, we will be violating federal law because that person is a disabled person. The law, the issue is, Dominic mentioned how you try and react them, try and get them changed over, try and take them home, get them out. Okay, but if we call 911 and say there's a person using drugs out front, we'd be charged with discriminating. You got a person that has a mental health, a drug issue, okay, you can't do that. What are we going to say? What if one of my relatives, what if my nephew has a drug problem? I'm going to call the police and say, he's used drugs, he's walking down the street. I mean, we have no right. What if somebody walks out of the Easton Hospital right now, leaves the emergency room, walks down the street, and they were under the influence of alcohol and drugs? Do they call 911? Do they call 911?
Stop, everybody stop, everybody stop.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, please. All right,
Oh,
are you done with your answer?
yes.
You have another question?
I can't think of it right now.
Just hit this petite.
One more time, sir.
Bill Smith, 92 Main Street, West Houston. I live directly across. You got your main gate. They're open now, right?
Yes.
You got a bar that comes down, right?
Yes.
There's a sign in the front, drop off and pickups only for the DUI center in the rear. Where are they gonna go?
Well, I'm gonna talk to the county about that. I'm angry at Lamont and how the county's not doing it.
He's angry at you too.
I'm-
The guards are, because they said they won't be able to control passing.
No, our drop off is all the way in the back, sir. Okay, we're not
That's
dropping off
where-
in the front.
That's where their drop off is.
Well,
There's a sign out front.
they can call the warden up and tell them about it. You're a
Well,
neighbor there.
you're the landlord.
I'm gonna. You call me and tell me it's going on, I will call them up, I promise you.
Just come down there at 3:30 in the afternoon, you'll see what's going on. If those gates are shut down, where are the cars going, where are they gonna back up to? Main Street's gonna be backed up, it's a shortcut to Palmer Township. Anybody here, just go down there and look. There's a big sign out there. No pickups on Main Street. Drop off and pickups are in the rear of the building.
That's where it's supposed to be, I agree with you.
So that front gate is open. Two cars come in, where are they gonna go?
Did you hear that question?
Yeah.
Okay, I think this question is where were the cars gonna go, correct?
Yeah, where the gate comes down, it'll fit 3 cars. So there's 6 cars coming there for return for the DUI center. Where are the cars gonna double park out Main Street? We're gonna have a bigger problem.
We're not proposing closing the gate down the front for stopping cars that come in. Our drop off area, that gate's gonna be open, the cars are gonna go all the way through and drop off in back. Our drop off area, that gate's not, for our treatment center, our proposal is that we have a drop off area where we designed it, that's where it's gonna be. We're not closing that gate.
All the cars are going in.
Before we go any further,
Yes.
Mr. T, you said you're not closing that gate. Can you point to which gate you're talking about?
There's an existing gate there.
I'm sorry, on the
It's not on
exhibit?
the exhibit.
Okay.
The county put a gate there that they were supposed to comply with, and that's a gate that they were supposed to have somebody open it and close it. That's their gate, it's not my gate, it's a county gate, I have nothing to do with it.
Okay, so the gate that you're referring to is for the, hold it. Just let me answer. Let me ask, you can answer. Is the gate that you're referring to for part of the DUI center?
Yes.
Okay. That is not part of this treatment facility?
No.
Okay. Are the gates for this treatment facility what you've circled in blue?
Yes.
And those are the only gates?
That's it. Well, that's what the judge told us to do.
I'm just asking you which ones are the gates for this facility? Sir, do you have any further questions?
It's still to answer my question, where are the cars gonna go for the DUI center? We're proposing. When you were first here for the first time, they were gonna go in where the gates are, that comes up. And they were supposed to go around and come out down the lower end of Main Street.
I respect that.
Did you not say you were gonna do that?
Well, with the previous testimony, I'm telling you, the judge ordered us to secure the building itself. We're here to secure the building itself. Okay, we're complying with what the judge told us to do here, and that's what we're sticking to. Today's testimony is we're fencing the facility based on what your ordinance tells us to do, and that's it. Not doing anything extra.
There's a couple in the back that have not asked a question, sir.
I'm Stephen Mathis from 224 Fifth Street. What type of fence is it going to be? And it wasn't clear to me earlier, how many gates are there?
3 gates, and it's gonna be a 6-foot security fence.
What kind of fence?
The material right now it's probably gonna be some metal, for a metal fence, but with some, look to it. I don't want the residents that are living there, the actual patients that are living there, not residents, patients, that are being treated for addiction, to feel like they're in a treatment facility, not in a prison. Okay, it's going to be designed to look good. It's some sort of a metal or aluminum product there, with decks that are made out of metal. It might even be, they have a new product out there now that's plastic, real strong plastic, like the Trex product. Could be something like that. That looks like natural wood, but it lasts long and it's secure. It's gonna be, we want the residents, because some of those people that could be our family members, we want them to feel like they're in their own backyard. It's gonna be grass, it'll be fenced, it's gonna be shrub and landscape. They're human beings, okay, we wanna make it a nice fence.
So before you ask your next question, you have every right to. I remind the people here that the ordinance says that there's a requirement of a perimeter fence of a minimum 6 feet high, subject to the final approval of Borough Council. So Borough Council has a role in determining what kind of fence it is. When the time comes when we're done with testimony, if you want to get up and say, this is the kind of fence I would like to see, Borough Council could take that into consideration.
Okay.
But if you have another question, feel free to ask.
And you said there's going to be one security guard per shift for 176 feet. 3 gates, and what it sounded like you just said a see-through fence, where anybody can just walk by and pass something through the fence, walk out, sneak out, come back in. You have one security guard.
Plus plenty of staff. What's the ratio of staffing? 8 to 1. So for every 8 people in there, there's going to be 1 resident staff, treatment professional that's going to be there with them. So it's not just 1 guard and 180 people. Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Cook on 60 Spring Street. I just have a quick question. When they come into your treatment facility, don't they have to go through the gate off of Main Street and go past the entrance through the DUI center to come around the back to your entrance to the facility?
Well, it's a good question, but we're actually coming in one way, going out that way for traffic flow. You know, so.
But aren't they coming past, if I can point, isn't this the entrance door into the DUI
Yes,
center here?
ma'am. Yes.
So they have to come in this way?
Yeah. And they get dropped here.
So if the county puts a locked gate here,
They're not doing that. It's all going out. We don't want that gate closed there. That's open just like it is. It'll be a traffic problem like he's saying. That gate's open. We're not required to do that.
but what I'm saying is, so your treatment facility patients or residents are gonna have to come in past the DUI center to come around the
To
back.
get dropped off there.
To get dropped off here.
Right.
So they're gonna have to come past the DUI residents to get to your facility.
Correct.
Okay, before we go any further, for the purposes of making a record, what the question is related to where a gate is, and that gate was pointed to on the map. It was pointed to, it was the light gray area, which is to the right of the orange building, starting from the top of the exhibit, working its way down. Mr. Preston, would you agree with that?
Yes.
All right, any further questions of Mr. Attia? Yes, ma'am.
Nicole Visser on 540 North Avenue. With the 3 gates that you have documented on the drawing up there, is there only 1 guard for all 3 gates? And are those 3 gates, do they have alarms and 24 hours recorded surveillance?
Good question. The fences, okay, the 2 fences that are, we're probably going to monitor them, so if they open and close, the security guard, they could have it on a walkie-talkie that rings, so the one is more, but the main entrance drop off, like gate when it opens and closes, it could be also monitored in the radio. We do that in our secure dimension unit, so we haven't decided on the front door because there's a lot of activities that go in and out of the front, but it's right now, when the gate opens up, it opens up, but we could easily tie it into our security system, that left gate is open, and then our security guard could go out there and check. Yeah, that's easy to do. We can do that.
So as of now, it's safe to say that they're unmonitored and unguarded?
The gates are for, gates right now, the plan are they're unguarded and unmanned, but we can do that if, it's not a big issue for us. We can get at that if necessary. Like I said, as Dominic said earlier, no other facilities in Pennsylvania have that, only in West Easton, we have to do these sort of things, seems a little unusual.
Yes, sir.
My name is Bruce Walter from 415 9th Street. Earlier, you stated that all 3 gates in your fence will not allow entrance, only egress from your facility. How are patients or people going to get dropped off and enter that gate? Is there going to be some kind of control to allow them in, sir?
Correct, I do apologize, I made a mistake. The two will have, actually, the main entrance coming in will be able to open and close. So a visitor comes in, you're right, the main gate coming into the facility will have, that one can be opened or closed, because that's the main entrance to the facility. That's where that's the main entrance where the receptionist is gonna be there, intake's gonna be there. That one, you're right. That one, the main gate and the main entrance of the building, you'll be able to walk into. But you're gonna be walking into a reception area, so guard, security girl will be there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, before we go any further, just the main gate you referred to, Mr. Attia, is to the right of the area shaded in green, correct?
Correct. That's the main entrance. I can pick that up.
Thank you. Sorry, next question.
If this goes through with the fence system, having contacts that alert someone that that gate would be open and closed and cameras, would you be willing to, if necessary, to put surveillance on?
Yeah, we're gonna have, there's gonna be 16 cameras on the facility anyway. Yeah, that's a good idea. I even accept it as a condition if it's working.
Yes, sir.
Wesley Beers again. Sorry to be a pain in the neck, but you said a judge said that the building had to be secured. Correct?
No. We have to have, the judge referred to your ordinance says we have to have a fence around the facility. We're applying by ordinance. Judge reflected your ordinance says that we have to have a fence around the treatment center.
I'm not saying the fence, I'm saying the secured of
I'm
the
not
gates.
object, the judge's opinion speaks for itself. We're doing our best to address how we perceive it. What the judge's opinion, it speaks for itself, our counsel, the gentleman's opinion.
Okay, who said that the gates had to be secured? The judge or the borough?
The gates don't have to be secured.
You were telling us before that they are secured. Did he not?
All right. Whoa, everybody stop. There, just so we understand what's going on, is there's the ordinance that the applicant is trying to fulfill. There is a judge's order that's, Mr. Preston's right, it speaks for itself. Whatever it says, it says. And then there's the question of how some of this may or may not be interpreted. And that's for another day. If you have a question right now of him, feel free to ask. But the big questions about the law are something that I think are eventually going to have to be addressed by the applicant, by a borough council, and then ultimately maybe a judge.
I remember someone saying that they were secured, and you was arguing back and forth a little bit, that to be a secured is one that is locked. A gate with a gate that you can just open and close is just a gate. But secured means it's locked. And I believe you were having a discussion about that.
Okay, but do you have a question for him?
Yeah, are the secured gates, are they locked?
This has been asked and answered.
So answer it again.
No, we're not going to answer it again. We're not going to answer it again. You don't have to answer it.
Mr. Everybody stop. Here's what I suggest we do. Mr. Attia, you've already testified and can actually confirm again. Your testimony was if a resident wants to leave the facility, the gates are not locked, correct? If somebody wants to come into the facility, except for the main entrance, they are locked.
Correct.
If somebody wants to come in through the main entrance that is also unlocked.
Correct.
So main entrance going in, going out is both unlocked.
Correct.
The other two gates, if you want to leave, it is unlocked, but if you want to come in, it is locked.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Very well. At some point, we're going to cut this off. Let's go ahead.
Bill Smith, 93 Main Street. That main gate, when are you going to work it out with the county? Because they still go in and they drop off in the rear.
What, that's better for
Hey,
you.
sometimes there's 8 cars, I know it's better for us. We had to get that done because they were blocking driveways.
Well,
That's not related.
Can't say this. Can't say this. Okay. Does the Borough Council have any questions of this witness?
I just have one question, just for a clarification question. You mentioned one security person, and I think Mr. Marfisi mentioned at least two. One for the monitor and one walking. Am I wrong?
I did say two.
Okay.
However, if you recall previous testimonies, there are trained staff as well to monitor security cameras, and this, the council wanted to ensure that they were bonded security folks. Our folks still will be trained to monitor security monitors and notify security if there's something going on.
Okay, so the security agency that you're going to provide, you're going to provide one from the security agency? Just one? Okay. Just one to clarify.
For the purpose of security, Mike's good question. The role of security will be it's predominantly for inside, right? A lot of people are worried about people walking out. This thing that you provided is said that everybody's tagged, and if they leave, the security guard will be alerted, and they'll know that somebody's leaving, so that security guard can at least alert the right people. The security guards predominantly, his main role is people in the facility, right? It's mainly just monitoring the doors and the gates, which everything's on cameras. That's predominantly its role. So if there's an issue with, I'm just saying with parking or something, is that outside of the scope of the security person for that facility? Is it? I mean, is
It's a good question, sir. The main number one issue that the bond and security guard is going to be is the resident leaving that facility, okay? Because we don't want him leaving the resident, but it's cash flow too.
Well,
if he leaves, it's
right.
business.
Well, you can see everybody's also very concerned about the people leaving.
The security guard, okay, every time if a resident leaves, it's a business. Don't get business. It's cash flow. You don't want that person to leave. You want to keep them for his treatment because the insurance company's not going to pay. Here's the financial goals that security guard can do. Keep the guys in the freaking facility. Secondly, make sure nobody goes out and goes into West East and hurts anybody because it's going to reflect on the treatment facility. Third of all, we're all human. You want to protect another human. If the security guard's in there and sees somebody run out of there erratically, what's he going to do? He's going to be a bonded security guard. He's going to do as best he can to get him in a car and get him somewhere. Well, this is, it's a professional licensed treatment facility. If something bad happens, guess what the state does? They'll pull the license. You can't have incidents. You lose your license. And you shut down.
The other thing with the fence is, I think you brought it up, we have, to prove plan, so.
Yeah,
we have some plans here about, okay.
Sure. We're happy to show you. We'll actually bring samples in for you. Show you.
Is the security guard going to be armed?
Not at this time. No, he'll have a walkie-talkie, probably have mace with them, handcuffs if needed, but we're not recommending an armed guard on the facility because.
Let me ask you, is the security officer armed at the work release? No.
No.
Why would they be armed in drug and alcohol treatment facility?
Sir, do you have an answer? Or are you going to ask a question of Mr. Tia?
Answer the question if you want. We're not, there's no treatment center, there's not one treatment facility in all the country. Not in the United States that has a gun with it. It's just not, one gun, it's just not in a treatment center. It's not, so we all have, mace, they'll have tasers and all that stuff, but they won't be on. It's unnecessary. We wouldn't allow that.
Any further questions from council? Mr. President, do you have any additional witnesses?
I do not.
You move your exhibits?
Yes.
At this point, the applicant is closed, meaning they're not going to be producing any additional testimony. This would be an appropriate time if there's members from the public who want to tell us something, they can do that. And this is your opportunity if that's what you want to do. If you're going to come back and ask the same question again, the Borough Council's here and will be here as long as we need to be. But we don't need to hear the same thing over and over. So I don't mean to be rude about it in any sense, but that's where we are. Yes, sir.
All right, Wesley Beers again. Who's actually gonna be running?
Not questions. Now, this is the time, you want to tell us a statement. This is the time to say, for example, I would like a fence that looks like this, or I don't want
I'm
this
not
here
worried
or
about
there.
that. I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is the fact that, who's running it. I mean, I don't know who's running it, if it's Mr. Atia's gonna be running it, or is it gonna be like the county prison down here, where he's gonna say, oh, I'm just a tenant, and then wash his hands of it. That's what I want to know.
Is there anyone else who'd like to make a statement? Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Cliff, 160 Spring Street. Nobody else will say it, I'll say it. I don't want it. Period. Down back. I don't want it. It's bad enough we have the DUI center. I didn't want that. I told you I didn't want it. I don't want this drug rehab center.
Yes, sir.
I'll second that too, I'm
You
not
will-
for
wait,
it at
your
all.
name,
It's
your
not for Wesley
No,
Street.
no, no. If you would.
Your name.
Marshall Wagner, 179 Spring Street.
Yeah, if you can repeat, I'll second that.
Pardon?
Can you repeat your comment?
Statement.
I just said I second what this woman said about, I don't want it in West Easton. I don't think it's appropriate for West Easton. If they have places to build, other places, they have other places, why not add on to what they have? Have it in West Easton. I'm against it.
Very well. Going down the line.
Gerald Gross, 206 Fifth Street, West East. Mr. Atia made a statement about the facility, and nowhere else does he know that there is, and this is not a fence question, that there's anybody else has a fence. Listen, we got caring people in West Easton that are used to a slow life, very little drive-through, and the facility is within 50 feet of Main Street residents and 300 feet from Spring Street residential areas. And you blew it off as it's nothing. As far as I'm concerned, it is something. And this council has a big responsibility, not to Mr. Atia, but the residents that are here complaining about their feelings. Between the specialist, the lawyer, and Mr. Atia, they blew off a lot of questions because they used the court of law to satisfy this thing. I sat, in my years of sitting in this facility, I've sat through a lot of this type of thing. And this is the time for you to vent and get it off your chest, because it's in the hands of council. They have a decision that could change the culture of this town. And if they make that decision, it's on them. So do your P's and Q's and set up, if you have a good feeling for it, then set up all the restrictions before you send it to the end. We need to be sure that it's going to be safe for the public. Public safety is a responsible entity of this council. And if you blow it off and it isn't, it'll come back to haunt you. And I wouldn't want to be sitting here to answer those questions if something happens and it isn't secured the way it's supposed to be secured. And that security thing is, as far as I'm concerned, it was a backdoor answer. Is it secure or isn't it secure? Nobody answered. Is it an electronic gate or isn't it an electronic gate? Is there somebody monitoring that electronic gate? I don't know. Is there cameras? Yes, there are cameras. Who's going to be there to watch the cameras to operate the gate, or who's leaving the building? These are all questions the council should have asked and have to be addressed. If it isn't, then it's on you.
Yes, ma'am.
Attorney Scarrow, I'm at 216 7th Street, right across the street. Wasn't able to put this on the record before, but I just want to let everybody know I was already a victim of the DUI. Right across the street, my car was parked. The guy left his rear view mirror in my house. Driver with no license plate. totaled out of my car. Thank God my 8-year-old and my 10-year-old weren't out there playing with slime like they always are. And I can't understand how this council is going to sit and not get an answer as far as security goes when you're dealing with 176 mental health drug addicts. And it's not, when these people walk outside, I worked for Child Protective Services my entire career. I'm empathetic to the situation. You can't have these people walking outside to my 8-year-old daughter. I can't even let my kid play in the front yard without hawking her. It's crazy. And then there's nobody for me to call. State police came out, they took a statement. You guys got it on your camera with this clown, and nothing is done. And I'm out of car for a month and a half. And I asked, if something is to happen, who do I call? We have no police department. If your security guard is unable to put their hands on an individual who is irate, as a resident, what am I to do? And how do I protect my 8-year-old and 10-year-old from this? Because when they walk out, they're going to be directly in front of my house. This is all day long, up and down.
June Smith, 93.5 Main Street. I just have a question. The main entrance is going to be the center, there's 3 gates into the facility. The center gate, is that where all the DUI pickups and entry into there? Because it's a problem getting in and out. I mean, our driveway is parallel right with the treatment center, DUI center, so there is an issue. I have a picture today on my phone, being pulled right in front of the driveway, blocked it for 10 minutes. He's getting in and out of the van, back and forth, talking to another inmate out in the entryway. So there is an issue with, say, parking, not even parking so much, just the flow of traffic in and out of there is really bad. And then I have a second question. If there's a court order from a judge that sends an inmate to treatment, would they be coming to our facility? And if they are, they can walk right out that door. That's another concern.
Hi, I'm Bill Smith again. My thing is, I walked around the whole community, road mostly, for 2 weeks. I talked to maybe 120 people. Nobody wanted but one woman. And then the more she talked about it, she says, we're paying our dues. We got kids that walk to school. Our kids are not bused. You'll see young kids going to work. Up along here, they either go from that center there, they go up there, Breeze Hill, Ridge Street, Spring Street. They get tired, they just lay down. I don't know if you don't see it, council, don't you ride around? Talk to the public. Nobody wanted it. They're for you. This ain't straightened out yet. If you think it is, come down now. I come up and complain to Joe when it happens, but just go down there and see what goes on. I see guys hiding stuff in bushes. You think I'm going to go over there and call? No way. And we're just getting a police force. Your chief's going to be coming back if this is approved. And you watch. I'm going to need 3 additional men for the complaint. Because he said if there's suspicious characters. We got them now. There's new faces all the time walking. More in Easton. It's up to you. You better think. We're not ready for it yet. So he got some security in there. Good security.
Yeah, Ted Phillips, 212 7th Street, we're right across the street. I moved here a couple years ago. I would say it's very uncomfortable with some of the people that walked around in front of my house. I did install cameras because, again, it's just, I mean, power to them. I'm glad they're trying to get better, but I don't feel like we need to add to it. I got a 6-month-old baby. I got a wife at home. Just, I'm outside doing landscaping. I'm washing my car. I feel like I'm always trying to look around, make sure no one's behind me or near me, or if I go up the side of the house, I feel like I gotta close the garage door because I don't want anyone just walking in. I just feel like we should be adding more to it. What we have now is something that we gotta deal with, but I don't think we need to, make it any worse.
Stephen Mathis, 224 Fifth Street. That's one kind of add on to that. I have a
wife at home, 2 small children. She walks into the park down here every morning, already has to look before they play for an empty beer bottle or other paraphernalia that we might find. And so adding this to that will just make it worse for everybody. I've seen it before, it's not gonna make the neighborhood any better. And we'll have to leave if it's gonna come in.
Just one more thing. Okay.
Sorry,
Let's move.
Brandon Woods, 177 Spring. I think, I don't know what the gentleman's name, the one that runs the facility. He, I think, spoke very ignorant and said that we should not be able to call the police on somebody using drugs in our neighborhood. They shouldn't do that because it's not right. I'm sorry, if I see somebody using drugs in my neighborhood, I'm calling the police. It's not a thing to do in the streets. It's not legal to do drugs, period, let alone doing them in the streets. So that was a very ignorant statement.
Beth Looks, 177 Spring Street. I know I can ask questions, so I thought maybe Borough Council can bring this to, if they have time, at least they can ask questions. As I stated before, I work in healthcare. I actually work for a pain management doctor. Legally, we are allowed to have an armed security guard and or police officer on our premises at any given time. I am all for, as Borough Council knows, I was here last month for the Veterans Clinic. I am all for helping people. However, we're helping them securely. So I don't know if Borough Council can address why they are not allowed to have an armed security guard, whether it's a police-issued taser gun or a firearm, because like I stated, we have every right to do so in our facility. So.
Nancy Staff, 316 seconds.
What's your last name?
Staff, S-T-A-F. I'm concerned because the feeling I get from these gentlemen is all they're concerned about is the people in that facility. They do not care about the neighborhood that it's in, this community. I care about this community. I live alone. I'm locking everything all the time because I don't know who's on the streets anymore. I used to know everybody I saw. I don't know people at home anymore. I feel very, very unsafe. And I think it's sad that our community has come to this. And I'm totally against this. And
Rich Nagy, 422 Front Street, West Easton. I agree with everyone. I think it's a bad fit for the neighborhood. I've been here a long time. The neighborhood, the town is really going downhill. We got all kinds of rental properties. Property values are going to start going down. This is just another thing we're going to add to create more problems. We don't have a police force. We need one very badly. If you are going to go through with this, there should be some kind of stipulation where they help fund 24/7 police protection in this town. You know, we can't do it with the guy that's on from 8 to 4 in the afternoon or the daytime, because all the shit happens at night. And the town, as you can see, these guys are business people, okay? The consultant kind of made me feel like I'm an idiot because I don't want this in my community. And we're the only ones that need a fence around a facility like this, you know? But I can guarantee you, if it was next to his house, he wouldn't want it. And Mr. T made 3 comments that I picked up on about profit. The security guards aren't going to let the patients leave because it's profit. 1 minute we have 3 security guards, now we have 1 security guard. It's going to be like Home Depot. When it opens up, there'll be 3 security guards, then all of a sudden you're going to have 1. And if they can get away with none, there'll be none. And the security guards aren't going to be able to stop anything anyhow, so we're going to look good. They're just going to watch cameras. Okay? It's just nuts. I'm totally against it too.
Trudy Margraves, 313 2nd Street. There was a statement made that drug addicts are not violent. I don't believe that statement is true because they can become violent. Watch TV, watch the news, read the paper. There's violence out there all the time for drug addicts. Every day you read it. And we just don't want this in our borough, period. That's my statement.
Well, at this point, I think where we are is we close the hearing. And the concept would be that we close the hearing for today. The Borough Council can make a decision tonight if it so chooses. I think it would be wise that Borough Council take their time and deliberate and make a decision some later date. Mr. Preston, is there anything else from your end?
No, nothing further.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we're adjourned.
Yeah, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess.